everybody. This time I would give you a sort of a mini review of a particular type of Superman from an alternate what-if story. What I'm talking about is what you see in front of you is the Red Sun Superman from the highly acclaimed Superman Red Sun story that was published in 3 issues and later on in one single volume. It was drawn by a known artist, Mark Millar, and today I will just discuss the 2 figures. All I can say about the comic book story itself is that it's a very interesting twist. What could have happened if Superman never landed in the United States or in Kansas? What if he landed actually in a remote, poor farm somewhere in Russia during the communist regime of Stalin? What would have happened then? What he would have been like? There is 2 versions that were released at the early 2000s of him, both made by DC Direct, based on the comic book. Let's start with this one, because this is the first version that was released, and this is the Superman Red Sun in his prime. He's proudly displaying his true colors of a communist Russia with the sickle and the hammer crossed over. His costume is very different from that of Superman because it's all in gray. He has a big red buckle on his belt, no yellow trunks except darker gray ones, and his cape is more or less the same like Superman, like the classic Superman's, and the only accessory aside from a stand that he came, a plastic stand, is this communist flag of Russia. So his articulation, of course, is very much the same, is what to be expected at that time when the figure was made. It's not meant for like highly articulated figure, and it actually has quite a limited articulation for many of you who are familiar with the DC Direct products. It has movement in the arms, the regular type of movement, in the legs as well. The hands can move at the wrist, and the head can move left and right. And there is no up crunch or any of these other additional types of movement. And there is no movement in the biceps either. So, like I said, pretty limited articulation for the times. Now, I will also indicate that this is by no means a custom. If you do a bit of search, you will see that these figures really did exist, so this is no custom of mine or anything. These are the original figures done by the DC Direct, based on that singular story that I mentioned, the Superman Red Sun. Now, what I have here next to him is, of course, still Superman from the communist story, from the What If story, but he's a bit different here, as you can tell. First of all, the first version over here is more heroic in appearance, what is what to be expected from Superman. So he started on a good way, saving lives in Russia of innocent civilians and so forth and so forth. There is a very striking image of him saving a small child from getting crushed by, I believe, a tank it was, or something like that. So that was a very memorable moment. And we also have here a slightly different version of him later in his life, when he assumed full power to lead Mother Russia against the United States and its allies. He assumed the position of a president and commander-in-chief, where no other characters could face him, meaning no other opposition members could face him in it. He assumed the absolute power and waged war against the United States and its allies, trying to spread the word of communism and his version of communism, or his vision of what the world should be like, the entire planet should be like. His enemy in the story would be, as usual, Lex Luthor, who is in the United States, and he became a president there. So then, as you can tell, you would have an ultimate showdown between the 2 arch nemesis. There will be some other DC characters, some villains and some heroes who would appear in the Superman Red Sun story, and some of them were made into figures, but I will not reveal who those characters are because it might ruin the whole story for you, and I will not, of course, reveal the ending, what happens at the end. There is so many details in that story I passed, and I didn't mention anything, to just keep it more interesting for you guys if you have a chance to get a copy of that story and read it yourselves. All I can say is that that story is quite impressive, and it impressed me of what a different take it is on the classic story of Superman. A sort of a completely reimagined idea, if I can put it that way. Anyway, back onto the figure here. As I said, this is how he looked when he assumed the complete and absolute power over Russia and led it into a struggle against the Western countries. Here, he doesn't look as heroic anymore as much. You can pretty much tell that by several things. Looking at his face here, you can see that the face has aged for sure, but he still has quite a bit of strength in him, and he has that strict look in his eyes. Somebody who respects only complete obedience, discipline, and will not stand for any kind of nonsense or any kind of opposition to his role. So it's like he's entering a stage where he's more dictator-minded, if I can put it that way, for a lack of a better word. And other things you can notice about him, he's almost becoming like a warlord in a way. Now, why do I say that? You can tell that by the looks of his costume, it's becoming more militaristic. And with the inclusion of the black military gloves, and especially of the black military boots. And another change would be that his buckle will become a bit more different, and it would bear the same symbol of communism right in there. If you can see it, it's very tiny. And unlike the younger version of him, this version has already the actual symbol of communism right on his cape. And then he also has insignias of around the neck, which was actually a part of a uniform of a sort that was also included, which the younger version does not have. And he only came with a plastic stand and a small head of one of the characters that he defeated in the story. But again, I will not reveal what that accessory is, because you could then end up connecting the whole story. What else can I say about him? That these are the two most unique figures. They're never, by no means, they're any kind of customs or anything like that, because they're not. They were made as original figures by DC Direct, based on the Red Sun story, and this figure, as well as the younger version, has very limited articulation, but it's very well done. That the articulation itself, unless you're really a big fan of super articulated figures, it doesn't really matter in this case, because he looks just plain awesome. Both versions do, and I will just give you a closer look at both of them so that you can sort of tell a bit of what's the actual differences between them. You can take a look at from the front here, and then side by side, and from the back, where you can see that insignia is showing up on the left but not on the right. In the early days, no. So that would be the story of Red Sun Superman, or the communist version of Superman. There were other stories told about different versions of Superman in What If stories. There were so many that it's almost hard to remember them all, but there was also a version where Superman was raised by Darkseid and used as an ultimate weapon to conquer the universe. There was, of course, another story of Superman taking part in the American Civil War back in the 1860s, in the war that really did take place all those years ago, and several other versions of him being placed in different time periods, and in each case revealing his powers at one point in time or another. So anyhow, I do hope you guys enjoyed this small review of and a small discussion of Superman Red Sun. I am planning to do more Superman figure reviews of the other Superman figures that I have. If you didn't catch my previous bigger size video of reviewing several Superman figures, please check that out. And I'll keep in touch with you guys, and hopefully soon I can make some more Superman related videos for you guys to see. Thank you for watching the video, and have a nice day. Bye.